Well, what you do is you find someone who's already put in the 10,000 hours, someone who's already at the level that you want to be, who's already attaining the success and actually experiencing the lifestyle that you want to have. And ultimately what you do is you become influenced by them. But does this mean that you have to ask them to be your mentor? Does this mean that you have to, stalk them and fucking, ask them for piggyback rides and hang out with them all day, buy them lunch and, be their slave? No, it does not. What you do have to do though is be creative. And so you have to find your way to put yourself within that surrounding, whether, you go to the same lunch places or you hang out in the same area during lunchtime, or whether you ask to be moved closer towards where they are in that office so you can really absorb their work ethic. You can hear what they say. One of the most common questions that I get from newer LOs, people who just got licensed, maybe even en route to get licensed, is geared around finding their own voice, finding their own identity. And what I mean by that is, when you're a newer LO, or when you're new to anything for that matter, you're super self-aware, right? You're hyper focused on everything that you're doing and how it's being perceived. And this is just the way that we're wired. And so we may not want to take the leap of faith because we're scared of the repercussions. We're scared of whether we're being audited, or we're doing it the wrong way, or we sound stupid, or we mess up. And so that's why I constantly always say, and usually, any speech that I give or any presentation that I give to a group of LOs, is that when you're new, your biggest enemy is really you. It's your mindset. It's the fear factor behind it all, in not wanting to mess up. And so in this video, I'm going to teach you how to find your voice. I'm going to teach you how to find your identity, because as you're new to any field, anything in life for that matter, what you typically do is you look outward, right? You look towards how everyone else is acting, but at the same time you're very cautious of how you act, and you're really kind of tiptoeing on every action that you make, and you're your biggest critic, right? And so what do, right? Like you're there to make sales, but at the same time you have this kind of frustration because you don't want to do anything wrong, and so you're actually holding yourself back that way. And how you actually adapt and find your voice is, and I'm gonna use the analogy of something that I can relate to, because as a kid I grew up and I moved around with different family members, and in the process of, I had to go to different schools, I had to live in different neighborhoods, and I had to surround myself with different groups of kids. And what I learned was, and tell me if you could relate, comment below. And oh, by the way, if you're new to this channel, if you've never watched any of the content, I invite you to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you're notified of any content that I upload. If you're following me on any other channel, IG, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, LinkedIn, the handle is @SalesRemastered. Add me to your feed so you can get some helpful information like this video that's going to open your eyes to look at sales in a completely different way. Anyway, going back to the topic, as I moved around as a kid, I used to again go to different schools, and as a kid, right, like that's when you're most vulnerable, like especially as a child, because you get pressured to not be bullied, you get pressured to still be cool. And so it's the same type of fear factor when you're joining sales. You're like a kid again, because you don't know what's going on around you, you don't know how to fit in yet, you don't know how to adapt. And I think that's a very big challenge that a lot of salespeople have, and that ultimately holds people back when you really think about it. But going back to that analogy, the reason why I think about that is because, number one, when you walk into a new school, when you walk into a new environment, we're going to use school as an analogy. One group of kids you got are, let's say, the nerds, right? Like you got a group of nerds or geeks or whatever, and then you have another group, you could tell they're jockeys, right? Like these people are just the athletic group. You may have another group of, let's say, rockers or gangbangers. Like these are different cliques. And again, it applies it to even the sales floor to today, because you're going to see on your sales floor, you got cliques. This is just how we mingle. This is just human nature. And then, when you go into you go into a school field, you see another group, maybe they're, I don't know, valedictorians. So these are the bookworms, right? But nonetheless, you got different cliques. And whatever clique you join, you are influenced by that clique. So ultimately what you're doing is you're looking for the leader. You're looking for the alpha, right? Because you're not a leader yet. You're not the alpha yet, because again, you're new to that environment. You have to earn that rank. And so what happens is when you join this new clique or a new group of friends, you're typically kind of like very cautious of how you act, right? Like you don't want to be rude, you don't want to say the wrong thing, you don't want to look stupid, because you want to be accepted. And I think that mentally, this is how we act when we enter into a new job or a new profession or new sales floor or a new sales team, is we want to figure out if we can commingle, right? We can coexist per se. And so why I use the analogy of school is because in the workplace, instead of nerds, you got low producers. Instead of valedictorians, you have, mediocre producers, right? Mid-level producers. And then instead of jocks, for example, you have top producers. And so you're still going to see these cliques, right? And low producers hang out with low producers. That's just what they do. And that because they usually congregate and just chit chat or hang out, right? Or complain and try to, influence people to join their circle, because they're trying to walk around and complain with you or complain to you and try to point fingers and blame. And then you got another clique, which is like the mediocre agents or the mediocre salespeople, the people that are just there to just hit the quota. And they usually, they stick to their own, because you never really see them. They duck out right when the bell rings. They're barely just hitting the quota. Those are the mid-level. But then you got the top producers. The top producers are the ones that are consistently recognized. A lot of times they're actually hated by the lower producers. They get thrown shade a lot. And this is again, they mingle within themselves because they understand each other. That's just their DNA. So the question is, which clique are you going to join, right? Because you are going to be influenced by one or the other, right? You're going to be influenced by the low producers, the mediocre producers, the high producers. And so me as a child, me coming up and moving to these different neighborhoods and different schools, unfortunately I chose to go towards the bad cliques, the bad influences. But nonetheless, again, I adapted, and there came a point in my life where, I would have to straighten up and I would have to get good friends. And I tried, I really did. And I noticed that when I went towards that particular group, I was influenced again. But nonetheless, I adapted. And so this is something that's going to happen throughout your entire life. You're going to move to different neighborhoods, you're going to start different jobs, and you're going to try to find your voice. And why I think that this is a good analogy to adopt, because in order to find your voice, if you want to bypass the years of experience, because that's ultimately what it is, right? When you find your voice, ultimately what you're doing is you're finding your confidence. And you hear this saying that in order to find your confidence, it's all in repetition, it's all in practice. But what if you're new and you're a little anxious, right? Like, we're kind of wired to have things instantaneously now. And so if you don't want to go through 5, 15, 25 years of experience, you don't want to do your 10,000 hours of work to become a professional or master your craft, what do? Well, what you do is you find someone who's already put in the 10,000 hours, someone who's already at the level that you want to be, who's already attaining the success and actually experiencing the lifestyle that you want to have. And ultimately what you do is you become influenced by them. But does this mean that you have to ask them to be your mentor? Does this mean that you have to, stalk them and fucking, ask them for piggyback rides and hang out with them all day? I buy them lunch and, be their slave? No, it does not. What you do have to do though is be creative. And so you have to find your way to put yourself within that surrounding, whether, you go to the same lunch places or you hang out in the same area during lunchtime, or whether you ask to be moved closer towards where they are in that office so you can really absorb their work ethic. You can hear what they say. One thing that I did when I first came in, I found out who the alpha male was. I found out who the top producers were. And, when something that you do when you're new is you shadow, right? But it blows my mind, because if you don't shadow correctly, what the hell are you doing? You're just watching them. You're watching a one-sided conversation. You don't understand. You know what I mean? You don't hear the other person talk, and they're moving around some CRM that you've never seen in your life, asking questions that you have no idea the hell you're supposed to do with it. And so the best way to really shadow someone is find out who you're shadowing. Find out who the top producer is. Don't just shadow anybody. Don't shadow just anyone because they're experienced. Ask first. Say, hey man, who's the top producers? Who's the heavy hitters? I want to shadow that dude or that chick. And when you do shadow them, I want you to, you know, just discreetly turn on your recorder, your voice recorder on your phone. And I want you to record that experience, because what you're doing is you're hearing their go-to. You're hearing their lingo, their rhythm, their vibe, right? And so ultimately what you're doing is, now you don't necessarily need to listen to every single word. You're just seeing how they compose themselves, how they carry themselves. You know, you're studying kind of the way their desk is laid out. You're studying their management, their time management skills, their process, their flow, their system, because that system is what's generating that person's money. That system has been developed over years of repetition, over years of practice. And so it's kind of like you getting that cheat code, that up, down, down, left, right. You remember that? If you remember that, man, comment below what game that belonged to. Anyway, you're actually getting a sneak peek of something that's taken years upon years and hours upon hours to manufacture. And so you're ultimately just kind of really adapting that. Now you can go back later on and listen to the voice, listen to the tone, listen to the script, the lingo, and you can use your creativity to put two and two together. But keep in mind that that's the default mode of that top producer. And so that default mode is just something that it took a while to progress. And the challenge with you being new or coming into an industry brand new is you don't know what to do. You don't want to make the wrong move. You don't want to, sound stupid. Then don't. Sound just like the top closer in the room. Do exactly what the top closer in the room's doing. You know what I mean? You say the exact words that work because the top producers work in it, and you know it works because you see them consistently winning the awards or getting recognized for being a top producer. So if it works for them, don't reinvent the wheel, boo-boo. Don't try to fix something that's not broke. Really, for real, you have to really understand that in order to find your identity, it does take confidence, it does take repetition, but at the root of it all, what it does take is execution. You just gotta go. You just gotta start, right? Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of what everyone else thinks, because to be honest with you, no one cares. No one gives a fuck about what you're doing. They don't care about whether you mess up or not. Only you do. And the faster that you can really kind of take these philosophies and ideologies and lessons and shares and tidbits that I give at Sales Remastered and really internalize them, the faster you're going to be able to fly on your own, and the faster you're going to be able to find your confidence, and the faster you're going to be able to find your voice. So I wish you guys nothing but the best. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all the social media channels: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn. Wherever you are, chances are I am. The handle is @SalesRemastered, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.